In this section, we're going to start talking about curves. Now, curves in Rhino may be the most important tool that you'll use. The curve is going to be the foundation for almost every non-standard object that you create in Rhino. This is called a control point curve. Left-clicking on this tool here creates a control point curve. If I hold down on my little triangle, I get my submenu. As you can see, there are a lot of other types of curves. Now, like the line tools, some of these curves are pretty advanced and not going to be very necessary for us to get into, but a lot of them are very useful. The two that catch your eye pretty quickly are the helix and spiral curves. Those will create pretty much exactly what the diagram shows. We can also interpolate a curve on a surface or wrap a curve around a surface. And we can create a curve, control point curve, by interpolating the points. Now let me show you the difference between that and a standard control point. This here, again, I left click and I draw my curve. And as you can see, the points are not exactly on the curve. What they do is sort of guide the curve between them. The interpolate points curve actually forces your curve to move exactly from point to point. Restricts it to the points that I place down, as you can see. Which would seem to be more precise, but is actually not as intuitive to use. It's a lot more difficult to get the exact sort of shape that you want using this type of curve. If I bring my endpoint near my beginning point, it automatically tries to connect itself. Then if I left click, I have a closed curve. The difference between a closed curve and an open curve, you can see here, is pretty simple. An open curve has two unlinked ends, and the closed curve doesn't have any loose ends. It's in fact closed. A lot of the tools in Rhino will get pretty fussy about whether you're dealing with closed or open curves. For example, if I were to loft this curve, if I were to create a duplicate of it, these two curves here are both closed and could be lofted using this tool here, which is a very common tool that you use quite a bit to great effect when you need to create shapes from curves. I'm going to right click and just press OK. Now if I delete that shape that I've just created, and we're going to get more into the loft tool with the curve tools later on. I'm going to highlight all three of these curves. Now I have one open curve in the middle. I'll go back to Surface, Loft, and I get an error message, unable to loft. Select either open or closed curves, but not both. So open curves and closed curves can both be created with the control point curve, the interpolate points curve. These other tools here, some of them we'll be touching on a little bit later, but again, it's important to note that most of the work that you do in Rhino is going to start with the curve rather than the line or the point.